I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. I am back. I took a break yesterday because had to de-stress from the holidays. I know you guys know how that is sometimes, but I hope all of you had a great holiday weekend. I definitely did. So I'm back. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays. And you can catch me here typically Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And let's go ahead and do the damn thing, guys. I want to go ahead and give quick shout outs to people in the chat. Got a pretty good show tonight. Got some things to talk about on call-in, so I hope you are ready for that. What is going on, baby Ethernet? Interesting name. Marianne is the only candidate I'd vote for, honestly. Biden needs to retire yesterday. We're going to talk about that. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and take that poll. Shout out to Noman. She's so perspicuous. Real electable there. Oh, Noman. Shout out to Hannah G says, I can't support Marianne. Oh, pay close attention to the poll too, you guys, because there's an option for yes, you'll support her if she runs as a Democrat. Yes, you'll support her only if she runs independent or third party, or no, you won't support her if she runs either. And then there's also the option of you're not sure. Shout out to Pitchforks Are Coming. What the F? Who voted yes? She's a shithole warmonger, and that's my red line regardless. She is effing garbage. Yikes. Pitchforks are coming out with the fire. Like, boom. Okay, I think I know where Pitchfork stands. Shout out to Sean, says, Sabby, oh, Sabby, please start the show to tune of Louie Louie. Oh, Sabby. Oh, you really got me going. Oh, no, it sounds better with Louie. Shout out to Gamer, says hello. Greetings, Eric, who is a Sabby member, says hello there, everyone. Greetings, Roger Meadows says 44 million. Goddamn. Roger's referring to something we were talking about earlier. Shout out to Mika, says no, Marianne. That's two people that are saying no. Shout out to Baby Ethernet again, says hit the like button, y'all. That's right. Go ahead and hit that like button for me. Greetings, Chris says hi. Hello. What is going on? Tori says, fuck no, I would not vote for her whack at. Wow. You guys are really bringing the heat. We just started. Greetings, Crazy Boy says, oi, people. Shout out to Angela, who's a Sabby member, says slides into seat just as the bell rings. Happy Tuesday, one and all. What's going on, Damon? Positive vibes to all in the chat. Southern California, what's up? What's going on? Jonathan says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Mark Pugsley says, Marianne, dirty on the Palestinian question. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about pros and cons. We're going to get into all that tonight. Shout out to A. Ross says, hi, everyone. Greetings, KM4 Oos. No more politicians. Greetings, Elizabeth. It says, since our country elected a Trump, why not try a Marianne? Interesting, Elizabeth. Arif, what's up, says Liberia. What is going on? Alex says Marianne has been smeared her entire life, but she's the only one with integrity out there. She has my vote. Interesting. What's going on? Rick says, hey, y'all. Shout out to the Oracle at Delphi. Marianne is looking like a no for me. Oh God. Deneen says Marianne was the only pro reparations candidate, so I love her for that. We're going to talk about that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and give a quick shout out to Sabby patrons because you guys keep the lights on around in this house. Thank you so much to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker there. And I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Hannah Price and Mastermind Hour. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support, guys. Really do appreciate the help. Yeah, people really not feeling people really not feeling Marianne, really not feeling it. We're gonna see what the poll result says. I looked at it earlier, but it's probably different now, and it may change even after we cover the story tonight. So what are we talking about tonight? Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. Roll that beautiful bean footage. Okay, tonight we are going to discuss Matt Taibbi Twitter files part 9. This one is especially important. This goes into the CIA's involvement with Twitter. We're also going to discuss Marianne Williamson 2024. We're going to get into that conversation. Some of you have already told me how you feel. We're also going to discuss King Charles' hypocrisy. What did King Charles say on Christmas Day, and why is he a hypocrite? We're going to get into all of that, and we're also going to discuss Alabama ballot initiative results. Now, if you've been rocking with me for the past week or so, you know we have started off talking about the results of these ballot measures in states that have ballot measures. So tonight, we are going to talk about Alabama. They have a lot of ballot initiatives, just like Arizona did. So I'm going to split this into 2 parts. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that, fam. Okay, Alabama. Now, when we talk about these, I like to tell you first and foremost how it works in that state, because I think you need to understand that first. So let's dive right in, honey buns. Okay. How does Alabama put measures on the ballot? Alabama is a state that does not allow citizens the option to place initiatives on the ballot. So this one is a little bit different than the other ones that you have seen. Only the legislature can pass laws independent of voter involvement and place initiatives on the ballot using a legislative referred constitutional amendment for voters to ratify amending the legislative initiatives within the Alabama Constitution. So the legislators will put this forward, these ballot measures, whether or not they're going to amend parts of their constitution, and then the voters will vote on that, yes or no. To put a legislative referred constitutional amendment before voters, a 60% vote is required in both the Alabama State Senate and the Alabama House of Representatives. So 51% is not enough. They need to have 60%. Let's go into the first ballot measure. Alabama Amendment 1. Now, any of you who are critical of the criminal justice system, this one is going to be important to you. Allow denial of bail for offenses enumerated by state legislature amendment. Now, what does this say? See if we can go in a little bit bigger here. So this measure here passed by 80.48%. A legislatively referred constitutional amendment on November 8th. It was approved. All persons shall, before conviction, be bailable by sufficient sureties, except for capital offenses, when the proof is evident or the presumption great, and that excessive bail shall not in any case be required. Now, here are the crimes they are referring to: murder, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree rape, first-degree sodomy, sexual torture, first-degree domestic violence, first-degree human trafficking, first-degree burglary, first-degree arson, first-degree robbery, terrorism, and aggravated child abuse. For individuals charged with listed offenses under the bill, bail can be denied if the prosecuting attorney proves by clear and convincing evidence that no condition or combination of conditions of release will reasonably ensure the defendant's appearance in court or protect the safety of the community or any person. When a court considers whether there are conditions that would ensure a defendant's appearance in court and the safety of the community, it is required to consider the following: the nature of the circumstance of the charge offense, the evidence against the defendant. So when the evidence against the defendant, they're going to look at the defendant's character, physical, mental condition, family ties, employment, financial resources. Basically, long story short, if you have anything troubling in your past, this is probably not going to be beneficial towards you. This is where they attack the character. And we see this happen a lot of times in the media space. And the other evidence is the danger to the community or any person if the defendant were released. So I'm not sure how all of you feel about that. I know some people feel that there should not be a bail option for those who have committed a violent crime. And then there are some that are like, no, everybody should have that option. And then there are some that say we need to get rid of cash bail altogether because cash bail benefits those who have money. Typically, people who are poor or people who are working class have a difficult time coming up with that cash bail to begin with. And for those who are not aware, some of the people that are actually in jail are not there necessarily because they're guilty. Some of them are in jail because they can't afford cash bail. So they're just sitting there waiting to see if they have a trial. Not everyone has a trial. So that's important to note as well. VB says, it says Alabama is corrupt as they will use this against those with no power. Nothing new in that state. Absolutely. And if you have any concerns or troubles about your past, just forget it. Just forget it. Now, the second measure here also passed by 78.56%. This one's interesting. Alabama Amendment 2, Broadband Internet Infrastructure Funding Amendment, a legislative referred constitutional amendment on November 8th, and it was approved. This allows the state and local governments to grant federal awards, funds, or other state designated broadband funds to public or private entities to provide or expand broadband internet infrastructure, which is high-speed internet with defined upload and download capabilities. Funds granted by a local government to a private entity needs to be approved at a public meeting in the county or the municipality. Now, Roger Meadows actually has produced this documentation for me, and he left commentary here that I thought was really important. The only problem I see with this is despite the fact that the community, if they do not know about this, it can give private broadband the ability to come in and monopolize. Very good point there, Roger. So it is important that the community attends town halls and demand municipalized broadband infrastructure and free access, just like Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's important that you pay attention to these words, public or private, right? Public entities is one thing, but when you allow the private entities to come in, there could be issues with that, obviously. Like he said, they could come in and monopolize the industry. Gamer says high-speed internet should be a public utility. I agree. I 100% agree. Now, moving on to number 3, this also passed. Now, this passed by 81.89%. Alabama Amendment 3, notice to victim's family required for commutation and reprieve of death sentences amendment. Okay. It is required that this required the governor to provide notice to the attorney general and make reasonable efforts to notify a designated family member of a victim before granting a commutation, a reduced sentence such as life imprisonment, or reprieve, which is a temporary stay of execution of a death sentence. The Attorney General must provide a mailing address, email address, and phone number to the governor for the purpose of contacting the victim's family. Failing to provide notice voids the reprieve or the commutation of the death sentence, and the Attorney General and the Alabama Supreme Court can seek a new executive order. Before the governor has the power to postpone or reduce a death sentence to life in prison. I am 100% against the death penalty. So, this is one of those cases where I feel like if we got rid of the death penalty in this country, this wouldn't even be an issue. I just don't think it's our cause or for us to come in and decide whether or not someone should be executed or not. We got to think about restorative justice here. And that's something that the Black Panthers talked about quite a bit. You give people the opportunity to restore themselves, to find something or find the flaw per se, and figure out how to work on it and improve their self. But when you just sentence someone to death, you're not giving them the opportunity to do that. And yes, there are resources and there's counseling service in some of these prisons that they can choose to utilize. But if you're sentenced to death, even if you utilize that, you're still going to be sentenced to death unless a miracle happens, right? And the governor decides to come in and say, you know what, we've got pressure from the public. We're not going to execute this individual. That does happen sometimes, but not as often as it should. Now, we are going to go into the next amendment that they have here. This passed by 79.96%. Alabama Amendment 4 prohibit changes to election conduct laws within 6 months of general elections amendment. This one is self-explanatory. So basically, prohibit changes to election conduct laws within 6 months of the general election amendment, meaning that if you're going to make any changes in reference to the election and conduct laws, you have to do that within 6 months of the election. So you can't come and make changes the month of or a couple weeks before. Let's go on to another one here. And this is amendment number 5. Now, this one also passed. This passed by 68.71%. Alabama Amendment 5. Remove orphans' business from probate court jurisdiction. Amendment 2022. Generally, probate courts handle cases concerning wills, estates, property distribution, and debts of those who are deceased. County probate courts were established by the Alabama State Legislature February 11, 1850. The law provided that each county court was to have one judge of probate to be elected by county voters for terms of 6 years. Probate courts have also been referred to as orphan courts. Under the state constitution, county probate courts have general jurisdiction over cases concerning adoptions and guardianships, and they may have jurisdiction over other topics and cases as provided by state law. Probate courts hear cases concerning the following topics: to appoint and remove guardians and conservators for minor children and mentally incompetent persons, to establish drainage districts, to hear and decide on petitions requesting condemnation of privately owned land, to hear and decide election contests in certain proceedings, to preside over adoption proceedings, to order the sale of land for the payment of delinquent taxes, to hear and decide petitions for the redemption of land sold or delinquent taxes, to receive petitions, determine the sufficiency thereof, and conduct elections for the establishment and dissolution of municipalities, to receive and decide petitions for the adoption of a commission form of government and for alterations of municipal boundaries, to hear and decide claims for exemptions from executions, attachments, and garnishments, including authority to hear and decide homestead exemptions, and to conduct capacity hearings and involuntary commit persons for mental health treatment, to determine competency of a person to vote and to provide over trust administration matters. This yes vote removes orphans' business from the jurisdiction of county probate courts. So if we go back up to the top here, where it said orphans, right here, probate courts have also been referred to as orphan courts, yada, yada. So the yes vote, again, would do that. Now, Roger Meadows put this here. He said, my question is, what court do they go to now? And that's a good question. He has links below, local news, into explanation of the amendment as well. I can't show local news on here. Local news has copyright. But then he includes the link here for the ballot. I'm going to put this one in the chat for you guys. So you can actually, it's not going to copy the whole link. So you can look at this one as well. Yes, very well said. Very well said, Maharaja. Children aren't property. They should go to family court. 100% agreed. That was really weird to me that was a part of their probate court. I didn't understand that at all. And we're going to go ahead and stop there for tonight. And then Thursday, I will pick up part 2, because like I said, they had a lot of amendments, measures here, just like Arizona did. You'll see this as we go through them. Some states have few, some states have a lot. So brace yourself, brace yourself. What was really interesting to me about these measures that passed in Alabama, most of them seem to have to do with some type of, whether it's prison, the prison complex, whether it's some type of, criminal justice. Like, it seems to have to deal with the courts per se. Like, let's change this rule about the court, or let's change this rule about the prison industrial complex. Whereas the other ones that I have read through are not heavily focused on those issues per se. So far, the only one that's an outlier is the broadband issue that they have here. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to me. Pretty interesting. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Alex. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, I see all the comments here about Arizona, about Alabama. I know it's yeah. It's different compared to the other states. Different. All right, go ahead and hit that like button for me, guys. That helps me out with the algorithm there. And we're going to go ahead and go into our next story here about King Charles. And I have to remind myself to say King Charles, because I'm so used to saying Prince Charles. I just am. So I'm just like, yeah. Oh boy, how do I even begin with this one? So it is customary for the king or queen in the UK to deliver an address on Christmas Day. King Charles issued an address on Christmas Day, and he also took this opportunity to talk about some of the economic issues that people are experiencing in the UK at this time. And let's get into the clip first. Let's get into the clip. I want you to hear the speech, because I have some things to say about King Charles and the rest of the monarchy when it comes to the economic issues in the UK. And then we're going to get into a little bit more when we talk about wealth, not just in the UK, not just in the United States, but in the world. When we talk about all these people, or these few amount of people, but these families, we're going to focus on families, not individuals. These families that have so much concentrated wealth, and yet 99% of people do not have it, and they are left out. And we're going to talk about what people are actually dealing with in the UK, given the energy crisis and given inflation, and why I think King Charles is full of BS here. Let's get into this address.
I'm standing here in this exquisite chapel of St. George at Windsor Castle. So
can you do the volume booster on this, Eric? Thanks. It's not often that we hear King Charles speak either, something I've noticed, but I have so much to say here, man.
To where my beloved mother, the late Queen,
Thank you.
is laid to rest with my dear father.
Yeah, I gotta skip that part because can't play the music. Let's hear what King Charles has to say. Boy, I tell you, he's something.
I'm standing here in this exquisite chapel of St. George at Windsor Castle, so close to where my beloved mother, the late Queen, is laid to rest with my dear father. I am reminded of the deeply touching letters, cards, and messages which so many of you have sent my wife and myself, and I cannot thank you enough for the love and sympathy you have shown our whole family. Christmas is a particularly poignant time for all of us who have lost loved ones. We feel their absence at every familiar turn of the season and remember them in each cherished tradition. In the much-loved carol, O Little Town of Bethlehem, we sing of how in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. My mother's belief in the power of that light was an essential part of her faith in God, but also her faith in people, and it is one which I share with my whole heart. It is a belief in the extraordinary ability of each person to touch with goodness and compassion the lives of others and to shine a light in the world around them.
To touch with goodness and compassion in the lives of others. Okay. How have the... Let me finish. I'm getting heated.
This is the essence of our community and the very foundation of our society. We see it in the selfless dedication of our armed forces and emergency services, who work tirelessly to keep us all safe, and who perform so magnificently as we mourn the passing of our late Queen. We see it in our health and social care professionals, our teachers, and indeed all those working in public service.
The teachers and the nurses have gone on strike in the UK, along with the railroad workers. We did talk about this about a week or two ago, and I think that's why he's specifically singling out those professions.
Whose skill and commitment are at the heart of our communities. And at this time of great anxiety and hardship, be it for those around the world facing conflict, famine, or natural disaster, or for those at home finding ways to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm, we see it in the humanity of people throughout our nations and the Commonwealth who so readily respond to the plight of others. I particularly want to pay tribute to all those wonderfully kind people who so generously give food or donations, or that most precious commodity of all, their time.
Let's pause here for just a second. So he mentions how people are trying to find a way to pay their bills, and he wants to thank people who are helping those people who are going out there basically doing mutual aid, people who are doing volunteer work. Here's the problem. Right now, there are people in the UK that can't afford to pay for heat. We have entered winter. They can't afford to pay for the heat because of the energy crisis. We have the energy crisis because of the war between Russia and Ukraine and the cutoff of the Nord 2 stream pipeline. But you know who does have heat? King Charles. The entire monarchy. They have heat. They have food. They're not struggling to pay any bills. You know why? Because all their bills are paid for by the taxpayers in the UK. The same people who are working class, the same people who are struggling to pay for heat or can't pay for heat for themselves, their taxpayer money is going to the monarchy to make sure that they have heat, to make sure that their bills can be paid. This is the problem that I have with King Charles in this speech. And I get what he was trying to do. Let me not pretend like I don't realize that this crisis is happening. Totally get that. But here's my thing. For decades, your family has been able to live a very, very comfortable life. Your family, while living that comfortable life, have colonized countries across the world, have stolen resources from those countries. So even the countries where the UK came in and they said, you know what? It's years later. These countries want to be independent. Let's let them do that. Let's give them the opportunity to do that. It didn't matter at that point because you had already taken resources from those countries. You see what I mean? You got what you needed already. And so here we have King Charles complaining, or I guess he's trying to empathize with the people in the UK about the struggle that they are going through. But you live in a palace, King Charles. You live in Buckingham Palace. Your kids live in basically another palace. You guys have everything. And this is another reason why I say, what is the point of the monarchy at this point in time? Now, we talked about this on my call-in show. Someone called in and said, well, the reason why they keep them there is because of tourism. Because it brings people into London, tourists, and they want to see Buckingham Palace. Totally get that. Whatever. I'm pretty sure there are other things in London that you can go see. But at this point in time, with everything that has happened and what's going on with inflation and how people in the UK are suffering, why do you still need the monarchy? Why are the monarchy still living off of the taxes of the people who are struggling to pay their bills, of the people who cannot afford to have heat? You live in this giant palace, King Charles. Are you offering to open up your home to some of the people whose taxpayer money that you've been taking all these decades? Are you offering to help those people? And I don't mean set up a charity that you can do as a tax write-off later on. I don't mean do something like that you can take a photo op and say, look at me helping out these poor people. I mean the long-term strategy, which is the sense that you are profiting off of other people's suffering and pain because you're taking their money, their taxpayer money, and they can't help themselves. And it is wrong. I don't understand how this has gone on for this long. I don't get it. And if anyone is watching and you live in the UK, let me know how you feel about this. Let me know. We're going to go back in.
To support those around them in greatest need, together with the many charitable organizations which do such extraordinary work in the most difficult circumstances. Our churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and gurdwaras have once again united in feeding.
Hold up. Let me answer this question. The Traveler says, is Biden going to open up the White House to house the illegals coming across the border? The people who live in the UK residents who are paying taxes are not illegals. This makes no sense. No sense. You get what I'm saying? The people who are UK residents, the taxpayers, they are the ones paying for King Charles' lifestyle, and not just his lifestyle, but his kids. All of them. These people don't work. They're not getting paid. They've been living off of taxpayer money all this time. And the taxpayers are struggling and they don't have heat, and King Charles is still living comfortably. That is the problem. So don't even try to make that comparison here.
Feeding the hungry, providing love and support throughout the year. Such heartfelt solidarity is the most inspiring expression of loving our neighbor as ourselves. The Prince and Princess of Wales recently visited Wales, shining a light on practical examples of this community spirit. Some years ago, I was able to fulfill a lifelong wish to visit Bethlehem and the Church of the Nativity. There I went down into the chapel of the manger and stood in silent reverence by the silver star that is inlaid on the floor and marks the place of our Lord Jesus Christ's birth. It meant more to me than I can possibly express to stand on that spot where, as the Bible tells us, the light that has come into the world was born. While Christmas is, of course, a Christian celebration, the power of light overcoming darkness is celebrated across the boundaries of faith and belief. So whatever faith you have or whether you have none, it is in this life-giving light and with the true humility that lies in our service to others that I believe we can find hope for the future.
I believe the hope for the future is to not have a monarchy at all. I believe that should be the hope for the future because they travel to these countries, you guys. Yeah, they travel, they visit sick children, they visit these impoverished communities, they take pictures, they talk to the people. That's all fine and dandy, but they are not helping those people. You see the problem? It's like, it's like photo op. This is something that they're supposed to do as part of their quote unquote service, as a part of their roles. Yeah, okay, you go see poor people. Big deal. Are you helping those poor people? Are you helping the people in the countries that your family stole from for decades? They're not even helping people in their own country. We're going to get to that in just a second. I'm going to show you what's happening with people in the UK because they can't afford heat.
Let us therefore celebrate it together and cherish it always. With all my heart, I wish each of you a Christmas of peace, happiness, and everlasting light.
Let's pause there. Let's stop. I believe that was the end of yes. Let's come up out of here. All these years, you guys, all these years, I don't understand why it's still a thing. You know, when we talked about this a week or two ago, I don't blame people like Harry and Meghan for leaving. I don't blame them for leaving. Like, I wouldn't want to be a part of this life. How can you go into your palace every day after all those poor people that you see, after all those trips that you take? How can you leave those trips, go back into your palace, and let people wait on you hand and foot and continue to live off of other people? Guys, they don't work. You say you care about those people, the working class, the people who are poor, then stop living off of them. Stop living off of them. What do? They don't make any laws. They don't govern the country. That's what the prime minister is for. So I ask again, this day, this point in time, what is the purpose of the monarchy today? What's the point? Deneen said they are figureheads only. That's it. That's it. And they live like royalty. But how are people that are working class and poor living in the UK right now? What's happening to them? Listen to this. Did you know that it has now gotten to the point where they have to have warm banks to go to? Listen to this. Struggling to afford heating bills. Britons turn to warm banks to keep out of the cold. This is ridiculous, you guys. Every morning on her days off, Mary wraps up in a winter coat and heads to Woolwich Centre Library in Southeast London, where she spends 2 hours on the computer and keeps herself warm. This is just one example. The 52-year-old who works as a healthcare assistant in Britain's National Health Service is among those who are turning to warm banks. These are designated spaces where people can go if they cannot afford to turn on the heat at home. Designated spaces where people can go if they cannot afford to turn on the heat at home. But King Charles and Prince William and all the rest of the whole bunch, the royal clan, they're living comfortably. They don't have to leave Buckingham Palace and go to a warm bank. They're all set. No one should have to, when you have a family living in that country, so elite and so prestige, where they have everything, and the people that they are living off of are just making enough to get by, to the point where they have to leave their home and go to these warm banks to get heat. That is not a just system. That is a corrupt system. It's terrible, terrible. And you wonder why all these different industries are on strike in the UK. You wonder why. Let's go back in. The war in Ukraine has pushed natural gas prices up sharply, exacerbating a cost of living crisis in Britain. Again, a cost of living crisis in Britain, where inflation rates are among the highest in the developed world. But everybody else struggling. They can't even turn on the damn heat. Obamis, who lives in a council flat and earns up about to £1,500, which is $1,828 per month, is the main earner in her family, with her 2 children still in education and her husband working as a freelance journalist. Now, this is someone making $1,828 a month, and part of her taxes is going to keep people like King Charles and the rest of the monarchy comfortable. How is this right? It's not. The family has been operating an on-off system with their heating, turning it on in the mornings and then off for most of the day. The intermittently in the evenings when the children return from school and university. When they get cold, Obama said they wrap up in their coats and sit on the sofa with blankets. The fact that you have a family with so much concentrated wealth, and the wealth came from the people, and they're still allowed to take money from people living like this so that they can live well, that is disgusting. You see, when we talk about corruption, when we talk about the wealth inequality in this country, I want you to know it's not just this country. This should have been done away with a long time ago. A long time ago. Let's go on. Obama's family is in the 4% of Britons who reported being behind on their energy bills. Now, that's according to a December survey of more than 2,500 individuals by the Office of National Statistics. The family had to defer last month's payments and are fearful they will have to do the same again this month. Christmas struggles. It is really hard to see them like, but mommy, I'm cold. I'm cold. These are the kids. Speaking during a cold snap that led to a heavy snowfall and freezing temperatures. So it's okay for the monarchy to reside in a heated palace. But you have children here from a working class family sitting in the cold. Let's go on. She said she is now uses a whistling kettle instead of an electric one in order to keep costs down, and keeps hot water for coffee in a flask after boiling to avoid heating the water again. Even though warm banks are providing a refuge for those otherwise trapped in cold homes, library manager Amy Jackson says there is still a stigma attached to using them. And this is where the stigma comes in. I think a lot of people are kind of unfortunately embarrassed and a bit ashamed to admit that they're struggling sometimes. So promoting our clubs and our warm spaces as different things really kind of makes it more approachable for them. She added that it was such a shame that warm banks actually have to exist in this day and age. But you know, it wouldn't have to if you didn't have a family with that concentrated wealth and the other people without. Many Britons have also been struggling to afford basic necessities, with the prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages rising at the fastest rate since 1977 in the 12 months of October. Obama said her family had survived on just rice and pasta earlier this year after they ran out of money to buy food with her children. Her children were asking, "Mommy, how can we be like this when we are in the UK?" Because the family, the monarchy, continues to take money from people like you. This family living off of pasta and rice, that's not healthy, obviously. The royal family gets an entire spread of food, whether it's breakfast, whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner. This is different from the type of wealth that people like Bernie Sanders complained about. Because this isn't a family that owns a business or they were billionaires. They don't own Amazon. This is different. This is a family that is in the position that they are in because of the money that they take from working class people in the UK. I don't understand how people in the UK have not risen up before over this particular issue. And I know for some, they really love the monarchy. They love the royal family. But I want you to ask yourself this question if you're one of those people. What exactly are they doing for the people right now in this time of need? What exactly have they done throughout their course of being a monarchy that gives them the right to take taxpayer money to live the way that they live? And they're not just staying in Buckingham Palace. They're flying around the world. There used to be a yacht. Did you know that? The Queen had a yacht that was paid for by taxpayer money. Everybody else struggling to get by. Again, they don't make any laws. No point for them. No point for them. Her main concern now is whether the family will be able to afford Christmas presents, with her daughter's birthday also falling on Christmas Day. We will see. This week is not ended yet, so we will see. Because you see, there's two different types of elite when we talk about elite people. There's two different types. There are the families like the Waltons, who made their money from Walmart, their Walmart business. And then you have those elites like the royal monarchy, who are just there because of their bloodline. They were born into it. Doesn't mean they earned it. And they're still, during this time, when people in the UK are struggling to heat their own homes, they are still taking money from those people. This is a damn shame. But what about those other families? Because when we talk about concentrated wealth, you need to understand, we're not going to talk about individuals. We've talked about individuals a lot. You need to focus on these families. These are the world's richest families. Remember, this money will stay in the families unless something were to happen with their businesses. But at that point, they'll probably still be all set. Here's a list of the world's richest families. Listen to this. Let's pull down that list. Just going to go through the list here so you can see it. Number one, the Walton family. The company, of course, is Walmart. Look at their wealth. $224.5 billion. Location, Bentonville, Arkansas. Also, Arkansas, low cost of living state. $224.5 billion. Who needs this amount of money? Do you guys see the problem? Walmart is the world's largest retailer by revenue, $573 billion for more than 10,500 stores worldwide. The Walton family owns 47% of the retailer, a stake that's the foundation of the world's largest fortune. This is why I tell you guys, if you can do so, please support small businesses. If you can do so. Not everyone can. For some of you, you may live in towns where the only game in town is Walmart. And a lot of the smaller businesses have been closed because a Walmart came in. If you don't have a Walmart in your town and you hear that they're going to bring one, this is why it's good to go to those town hall meetings. You hear that they're thinking about bringing one, start a petition not to have it come. Towns here in Massachusetts have done that. That's why there aren't a lot of them here. Walton family. Let's go on. Mars. The Mars family. The company is Mars. $160 billion. Location, McLean, Virginia. This is also where a lot of federal people that have a lot of the federal positions in DC also live in this area as well. Frank Mars began selling molasses candies in 1902 at the age of 19. The business he went on to create is known for M&Ms, Milky Way, Snickers bars. I don't buy any of that shit either anymore. Though pet care products make up, did you know this? Pet care products make up about half of the company's almost $45 billion in revenue. A lot of people think they just own candy. The closely held business is owned by members of the Mars family. Did you know Mars is the world's biggest provider of pet care products and veterinarian services? Those of you who own pets, next time you go get food for your pet, keep that in mind. All this amount of concentrated wealth. Do you guys understand this money will not leave their family? One person passes away, the next person will inherit the rest, and they'll keep it in the family. The rest of you will be locked out. Let's go on. Number 3, the Koch family. Koch Industries, $128.8 billion. Location, Wichita, Kansas. Industrial. Now, there is actually a Koch building at MIT. If you're thinking what you think, yes, that's them too. They also gave money to MIT. Brothers Frederick, Charles, David, and William inherited Father Fred oil farm. A fraternal feud over control of the company in the early 1980s led Frederick and William to leave the family business while Charles and David stayed. It has since grown into Koch Industries, a conglomerate with annual revenue of about $125 billion. The family manages a portion of its wealth through Family Office 1888 Management. Did you know? Koch Industries unit, Matador Cattle Company, sold a 340,000-acre Montana ranch to Rupert Murdoch last year for $200 million. Guys, these people, they have their hands in so much. Look at this. This is why I'm telling you, this is the most dangerous type of wealth. It's not just a Jeff Bezos. It's not. It's the families. Let's go on. 4, Al Saud Company, NA. They didn't put the company here. Wealth over $105 billion. Location is Saudi Arabia. Industry is industrial. The 90-year-old monarchy for which Saudi Arabia is named on credit the nation's unrivaled oil reserves for seeding its collective fortune. This net worth estimate is based on cumulative payouts royal family members are calculated to have and received over the past 50 years from the royal Diwan and the executive office of the king. The total wealth controlled by its estimated 15,000 extended members is likely much higher. Many royals have made money through brokering government contracts and land deals and by founding businesses that serve as state companies such as Saudi Aramco, the Kingdom Sovereign Wealth Fund, PIF has 620 billion in assets alone. Crown Prince Mohammed personally controls assets worth more than 1 billion. Again, guys, this is concentrated wealth in the family. Now you see why they're so powerful. Terrible. Terrible. Did you know Prince Al-Walid, yes, Prince Al-Walid was an early backer of Elon Musk's bid to take guys, I can't make this shit up. Look at this. Prince Al-Walid was an early backer of Elon Musk's bid to take Twitter private. Guys, they're all connected. So much wealth in the hands of few. And number 5, Hermes. Hermes net worth 94.6 billion. The industry is luxury goods and the location is Paris. The 6th generation family owns the French luxury fashion company famous for its Birkin handbags, which can run into the hundreds and thousands of dollars. By the way, women, stop buying these expensive ass purses. Stop. You're just giving more money to them. Stop paying thousands and thousands. I understand sometimes you may want to have a cute purse. I totally get it. I totally get it. But even I have my limits. Some of these purses, I'm like, there's no way in hell I would pay $1,000 for a purse that's just going to go out of style next year. No way. This is ridiculous. Among the family members who maintain senior positions at the company are Pierre Alexis Dumas, the artistic director, and chief executive officer Axel Dumas. Did you know Hermes operating profit margin soared to a record 42% in the first half of the year? These are the families that own businesses. They didn't mention the families that may own banks. They didn't mention those. And there's only so much I can say about those on here, to be honest. All these people connected. All these wealthy people. You see how the Prince of Saudi was able to help out Elon Musk. Like I said, wealthy people have class solidarity. Working class people and poor people don't. So you have so much concentrated wealth in the hands of few. And yet you have an 82-year-old woman, 82-year-old woman about to be jailed because she fell behind on her bills. Listen to this.
You Martha Minifield?
I am.
Miss Minifield, we have a warrant for you.
For what?
Not paying your trash bill.
What? So you're gonna handcuff me and take me to jail?
Yes, ma'am. I got to. Put you in these right quick, okay? They're gonna be in the front.
Oh, wait.
I got to, okay?
You're gonna be shaving yourself. Arresting an 83-year-old.
I am so sorry, but the law is the law, Miss Minifield.
That was 82-year-old Alabama woman Martha Minifield, who was handcuffed and arrested for not paying a $77 trash bill.
I'm not joking.
You guys see the problem? And they want you to be divided over red team, blue team. This is the big problem. You see that? So you can lock up poor people for not paying a trash bill. But you got all these billionaires out here doing white collar crimes and they don't go to jail at all. Or if they are arrested, they're released on bail. Hello, Sam Bankman. You see how this works? But the poor people have to be arrested.
So you're gonna handcuff me and take me to jail?
Yes, ma'am. I got you.
What did I miss?
I'm so serious. It's a warrant.
Uh,
Failure to pay solid waste. And here's all your information.
And what makes it worse is the police officer is actually laughing. I don't see what's funny about that. This woman is 82 years old.
That's how I knew where your address was when it come. You sure you got a phone call from the code enforcement about a month ago saying, hey, you need to come pay your trash bill.
reason I'm not saying this thing because my daughter takes care of that for me. You know, I'm just saying.
Okay, well, she has not been doing it. And you got to go with me today. Anything you need to grab right quick you can. And
I can't believe it.
we'll be going on down the way.
So what would I have to pay?
It'll be $285 to get out at the PD. If not, I have to take it to the county jail.
Oh, Lord. Would you just take one?
Yeah.
Let me add in something here when she says that her daughter pays for it. This is actually not uncommon with people who are, you know, senior citizens. I've seen this before when I worked at National, you know, the healthcare facility. It wasn't uncommon for a lot of these seniors. Once they get to be a certain age, it's not uncommon for their children to actually handle their finances for them. Doesn't mean they always do the right thing, but still, I think what we need to be paying attention to here is, why are you trying to lock up someone for not paying a trash bill? This is what police officers are doing with their time.
Put you in these right quick, okay? They're going to be in the front.
Oh, wait.
I got you, okay?
You gotta be shaving yourself. Arresting an 83-year-old.
I am so sorry, but the law is the law, Miss Manfield. All right, Miss Manfield, we got to get ready to go, okay?
Okay, what's the key? They arrested me for not paying my trash bill. And you know, Frank always pay my trash. Tell your mom, you get somebody to come and get me now.
Oh, good.
Now, my question is this: how is arresting her going to help her pay for the trash bill? Obviously, this is someone who's retired, living on a fixed income. Like, how does this actually solve the problem? This is where our taxpayer money is being used to arrest an 82-year-old woman who didn't pay a trash bill? Shouldn't they be going after murderers? Shouldn't they be going after people who are doing school shootings? No, they got to arrest poor people.
And y'all come on a Sunday.
Yes, man.
Arrest somebody.
We do them all the time. They just happen to get around you on this day right here. We took 2 more in yesterday. They were saying the same.
Did you hear that? He said we do it all the time. We took 2 more in yesterday. This is common practice for them.
Same thing. Y'all came on a Saturday. Yeah, we're going to come around right here. Don't follow me.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Okay, my bad. I don't want you to follow in the water puddle. Okay.
I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, this woman is 82 years old. I'm trying to imagine all the things that she could have probably seen in this country in her lifetime. Here's someone that was probably, may have been involved in the civil rights movement, but definitely lived through part of the civil rights movement. And here is someone, all the things she might have went through in this country, Obviously, she's struggling financially, and now she's being arrested for not paying a trash bill.
No.
We do it all the time. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. When did this happen? This was posted 6 days ago. There's also articles about this as well. This woman was arrested November 27th. And guess where it happened, folks? In Alabama. We read off those ballot measures for Alabama. I told you most of them seemed like they were going towards the prison industrial complex. Here you go. The point is this, and this is all connected to Prince Charles and his corny ass statement as well. Wealth rules the country. It rules the world. And oftentimes people who are wealthy are not punished. If they were, why the hell is Prince Andrew still walking around? Maybe someone need to ask King Charles that question. Instead of focusing on your hatred or your disgust for Prince Harry, maybe you should look at your other son and ask, why the hell is he walking around freely? Oh, but we don't want to talk about that, though. No, we can't talk about that. Let's go to those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Yep, when voters don't get to put their initiatives on the ballot and only gives power to the government, it gives a misdirected face to how Alabamians truly feel about progressive, socialist, Marxist, and yes, even communist policies. And unfortunately, broadband gives an option between corporate/government, not a mandate to only grant federal award funds or other state designated broadband funds to those who wish to municipalize. And thank you for this tip as well. Imagine if he said the following, and as of today, I will be beginning the process of dissolving the monarchy and returning all the jewelry, gems, and precious metals that aren't indigenous to this England back to the African countries we stole it from. We will also be returning the gold that rightfully belongs to Venezuela to Maduro. Kate be like, what the fuck? I wasted my time with marrying your bald ass. I am out. Damn, Roger. And thank you for this tip as well. Right of first refusal laws. Oops. Whoopsie. Right of first refusal laws mandating corporations make an offer to their workers to purchase the company once they grow beyond a certain threshold before they outsource out of the state, automate, sell to, or merge with another company, file for bankruptcy, go public, or even after they have gone public to purchase the company and restructure it into a worker co-op. And thank you for this tip as well. Now, if they've shown to have record of egregious and abusive behavior at putting the public trust, environment, workers, and consumers at risk, then the government rips ownership away and gives it to the workers. No, Sab, the worst is not that he's laughing, but the fact that he is a black man. I don't give a fuck if that is your job. She looked more surprised. Someone looking like a family member is doing this. There's that too. But what I always tell you, what did I always say? Black cops are cops first, black second. They back Team Blue first. Always, always. Let me go to some of these comments here. Keith says the monarchy is a major tourist attraction with all its pomp and ceremony and castles. The people still seem to love a spectacle both home and abroad. Cheers from Canada. Cheers, Keith. Rick says all born on third base. Shout out to Georgia, who just became a Sabby member. Welcome, Georgia, and whoop, whoop. Angela says in failed states, poverty is a crime. Thank you for the super chat, Harry the Hun. Goddamn shame. Exactly. Kilyuri Gorgi says a nation will be judged based on how it treats its elders. I think the Bible or something somewhere said that. Here you go. So that's what the police in Alabama are doing with their time. Pay attention to the wealth concentration, you guys. Pay attention to the wealth. We're going to go into our next story here, which is Twitter Files Part 9. They're coming out with these so fast. If I haven't covered one on here, we've probably covered it on RBN. But this one goes into another point that I think a lot of us knew was going on, but now we have concrete proof. We did speak about a couple days ago how Twitter was working with the FBI, or the FBI had reached out to them and said, this is what you're allowed to do. This is what you're not allowed to do. Now there is a statement, another one from Matt Taibbi, about other government agencies also doing the same thing. And one of them, of course, is the CIA. Let's get into that. Matt Taibbi starts off with the Twitter Files, Twitter and other government agencies. Boom, boom, boom. After weeks of Twitter Files reporting detailing close coordination between the FBI and Twitter in moderating social media content, the Bureau issued a statement on Wednesday. So I did talk about the FBI statement. It didn't refute allegations. Instead, it decried conspiracy theorists publishing misinformation whose sole aim is to discredit the agency. I talked about that, but we want to get into this part around about here. OGA or other government organization can be a euphemism for CIA, according to multiple former intelligence officials and contractors. One chuckles, they think it's mysterious, but it's just conspicuous. So this is referring to this message here, where it says on June 29th, 2020, San Francisco FBI agent Elvis Chan, remember we mentioned him in the FBI files, wrote to pair of Twitter execs asking if he could invite an OGA to an upcoming conference. And here's that email. Stacia, I wanted to follow up to see if I could forward this invitation to an OGA, specifically the people from blank former employer were inquiring. Hope all is well. So now you guys know that when you hear this term OGA, he's referring to the CIA. Let's go on. Other government agency, the place where I worked for 27 years, says retired CIA officer Ray McGovern. It was an open secret at Twitter that one of its executives was ex-CIA, which is why Chan referred to that executive's former employer. Let's talk about this for just a second. And it's not just Twitter. We talked about this where there were also certain politicians that were ex-CIA. Abigail Spanberger, she's one of them. So it wasn't even just the FBI. There were other government agencies that also had their hands in telling Twitter what they could or could not post or who they should or should not remove. Now, again, I'll say the same thing I said last time. We tend to look at these platforms as a town square, as an online community space, so to speak. These platforms are not that. These platforms, as we have seen, are heavily controlled. Let's go on. The first Twitter executive abandoned any pretense to stealth and emailed that employee. Used to work for the CIA, so that is Elvis's question. And here's that statement here. Stacy, I have no involvement here. I leave this to you to respond. Blank, and that's the person's name, used to work for the CIA. So that is Elvis's question. So there are people who have come forward. I'm going to show you one of them when we finish this. There are people who have come forward and they're basically saying that Matt Taibbi and all of the other journalists that have come forward with these Twitter files, these different parts, that they're all just conspiracy theorists, so to speak. But every time they talk about these different parts of the Twitter files, notice they always include documents. They always include emails like this one here. But you have certain people, one of them being a politician, that has come forward and say they're lying to you. They're gaslighting you. Evidence is right here, boo. Evidence is right here. It's not like they're just saying stuff and not providing documentation. Let's go on. Senior legal executive Stacia Cardell, whose alertness stood out among Twitter leaders, replied, I know. And I thought my silence was understood. Again, here's an example of that. Here's the evidence. I know. Let me see if it's publicly announced, and I will tell him that. I thought my silence was understood. So here is someone, Stasia, and we talked about her last time with the FBI files. Here she is, a senior legal executive. That is her acknowledging that she knows that that person was a part of the CIA. So they can't even come back and say, oh, I didn't know. You're on record, boo. And I'm surprised they even put this through email. Did they learn nothing from Hillary's emails? Did they learn nothing from that experience? Can always find those suckers, man. Can always come back and find them. Cardell then passes on conference details to recently hired ex-FBI lawyer Jim Baker. And here's the email from Stasia here. Sunlight conference tomorrow. No need for you to attend. Carnegie is doing the heavy lift. I offered to assist Nick and Yoel. Yoel's name has come up multiple times. But there are no academic papers to review or anything. I was involved in the early scoping of the joint project as well. I invited the FBI, and I believe that the CIA will virtually attend to. Here is this woman in this email stating not only did she know who they were, but that she invited them. They were invited. I don't know where Stasia is today, but all your stuff is out. All your stuff is out in the open here, hon. And so Matt Taibbi goes on to say that there. The government was in constant contact, not just with Twitter, but with virtually every major tech firm. And here's the thing I pointed out before. We know Mark Zuckerberg mentioned this in reference to Facebook when he was on the Joe Rogan show. I want to see the files on YouTube. Who have they been talking to? We've heard about Facebook. We've heard about Twitter. What about YouTube? Oh, would that be a sight to see? Would that be a sight to see? These include Facebook, Microsoft, Verizon, Reddit, even Reddit, you guys. I know some of you rock with the Reddit. I don't. Reddit for me, I don't like the format. But even Reddit, even Pinterest. Pinterest is like for, I don't know, like moms that like to knit and do crafts. They're even on Pinterest. And many others. Industry players also held regular meetings with the government. Regular meetings, not a one-off. One of the most common forums was a regular meeting of the multi-agency Foreign Influence Task Force, attended by spates of executives, FBI personnel, and nearly always one or two attendees marked OGA. And remember, we said what OGA was. So there's that. In the FITF meeting agendas, virtually always included at or near the beginning an OGA briefing, usually about foreign matters. And Matt included that as well. Here's the agenda. Look at it. What? Russia status, China status, global status, planning for the what? IRA update, OGA briefing. Their hands was in this mess all along. So there's that. Let's go on. Despite its official remit being foreign influence, the FITF and the SFFBI office became a conduit for mountains of domestic moderation requests from state governments, even local police. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Your local police, instead of going out there and, I don't know, protecting the kids that are being shot by school shooters, instead of them trying to chase down murderers, they got their hands on Twitter. And our tax dollars play for it. Again, hi, Stacia. FBI Minneapolis requested that I put you in touch with Lieutenant Hoff about some recent activities, which I provided below. I'll let the two of you take it from here. That's Lieutenant John Hoff from the Minneapolis Police Department. How do we know Minneapolis police will be involved? They've had their name in everything. Many requests arrived via Teleporter, a one-way platform in which many communications were timed to vanish. So it will post for a short period of time. And you can see here, it says the link will be valid through Thursday, November 5th, 2020, 4:18 a.m. So after that time, it would disappear. That was their way of covering their tracks, even though these tracks got out anyway. Especially as the election approached in 2020, the FITF and FBI overwhelmed Twitter with requests, sending lists of hundreds of problem accounts. And you can see that here. Twitter folks, could you see below from our FITF global unit and let us know what you think? That's them reaching out to Stasia again. Oh boy. I tell you, email after email came from the San Francisco office heading into the election, often adorned with an Excel attachment. Our FBI Baltimore identified these Twitter handles and tweets, which appear to provide misleading information. So you see, and here's the attachment here. Wow, wow, wow. There are so many government requests. Twitter employees had to improvise a system for prioritizing and triaging them. And that was another thing we talked about before, how there were so many requests that they had people working overtime to get those requests met. I even see in this email here, they even mentioned the Department of Homeland Security. Whoo! It's a lot, you guys. The FBI was clearly tailoring searches to Twitter's policies. FBI complaints were almost always depicted somewhere as possible terms of service violation, even in the subject line. And here's an example of that here. Possible terms of service violation. There you go. We're going to skip ahead a little bit here. So he gives more examples. This one right here. It seemed to strike no one as strange that a foreign influence task force was forwarding thousands of mostly domestic reports along with the DHS about the fringiest material. And you can see there's an example there. Biden using scorecard and the hammer. I can't say the whole thing here because of YouTube. And then it says, just like Obama and Biden did in 2012, the American report. Oh, dear. Let me go on. There's another piece I want to show you. The Twitter files show execs under constant pressure to validate theories of foreign influence and unable to find evidence for key assertions. So this was another thing that they were trying to do. They were pressuring them to do. Can you find any information of foreign influence? This kind of reminds me of Russiagate a little bit. So obviously they struggled to find that. Look at this. Found no links to Russia, says one analyst, but suggests he could brainstorm to find a stronger connection. Here they go right here, trying to make something out of nothing. So the analyst is telling them there was nothing, there were no links found about Russia. Their response is basically try to find something anyway. You guys see how this works? You see what they're doing? Try to find something anyway. Maybe you may need to even make something up. The demonization is real. Jesus. Oh, I should highlight that one. Yes. After I reviewed the accounts and found no links to Russia, I asked blank on this ticket, and this was his answer. Thanks for tagging in the workflow. From my checks, I could not find any indicators to suggest that account blank is Russian. Even the other phone linked accounts does not have indicators to suggest it is Russian proxy. Did checks via domain tools for IP resolves and email checks for OSINT. However, going by the content and narrative coming out of the account is definitely pro-Russian or could be a Russian proxy. I can brainstorm with blank and see if we can dig even deeper and try to find a stronger connection. Here they go about to smear somebody. Just like that. That's how they do it. Don't have proof, but we can try to find a way to smear them anyway. It's the same thing they did to Jill Stein. Smearing Jill Stein as a Russian asset. This is what they do. It's what they do. And the American people fall for it. He goes on to say here, extremely tenuous circumstantial chance of being related. Looked into this here, didn't find any exact naming matches and really any information to the link to the Reddit account to any on-platform presence at Twitter. There was one account that has an incredibly tenuous circumstantial chance of being related. So documenting the account here, just in case we ever need to come back at it. You see this? Terrible, terrible, terrible. Comes back again. No real matches using the info. Says former trust and safety chief Yoel Roth in another case, noting some links were clearly Russian, but another was a house rental in South Carolina. They really tried. They really tried. Anything they could find. So those are examples where they were trying to blame people, basically trying to say they were like Russian assets. There's also one with Venezuela. The Venezuelans were extremely high volume tweeters, pretty uncharacteristic of a lot of the other IRA activity. That's coming from Roth as well. They were going after them too. I'm not going to go through all of them, but other government agencies ended up sharing intelligence through the FBI, FITF, not just with Twitter, but with Yahoo. I didn't know. Let me hold up. People still use Yahoo? Twitch, Cloudflare, LinkedIn, and even Wikimedia. Whoo. There's info there. And John Kiriakou. So I met him at the Assange protest. Former CIA agent and whistleblower John Kiriakou believes he recognizes the formatting of these reports. John Kiriakou is a real one. He was also on RBN, our anti-imperialist summit. And he's talked about all the things that he went through with these agencies as well. And Kiriakou says, looks right on to me, noting that what was cut off above the tier line was the originating CIA office and all the copied offices. So again, he's someone who worked with them, so he would know. Hugo said, I stopped using Yahoo in the mid 2000s. I know, I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, people still use Yahoo? I don't know, man. I don't know. Many people wonder if internet platforms receive direction from intelligence agencies about moderation of foreign policy news stories. It appears Twitter did, in some cases by way of the FITF/FBI. These reports are far more factually controversial than domestic counterparts. So that's important to note as well. Let me go down here. This piece, this is the last one I want to show you. One intel report lists accounts tied to Ukraine neo-Nazi propaganda. Listen to this, guys. This includes assertions that Joe Biden helped orchestrate a coup in 2014 and put his son on the board of Burisma. Look at the names. I can't zoom in, but I'm going to point to them and show you whose names are mentioned here. Most mentioned Twitter profiles. Aaron Mate's name is here. Fiorella -im, that was Fiorella Isabel. Ben Norton's name is here. Anya Paramapil is here from Gray Zone. You also have Rachel Blevins. You have Joe Biden too. And for some odd reason, you have Kyle Kalinski's name is here. And he has not basically said he is not given a different narrative about this war than what I've seen on mainstream media in reference to. He's not given like the same narrative that we've heard from like Gray Zone, but his name is mentioned here as well. So you see this? This below is a compilation of Boolean search filters in English, Spanish, Russian, and Ukrainians to map the network of Twitter profiles linked to Ukraine neo-Nazi propaganda over the last 48 hours. They're watching everything. I told you guys they had people's names. So I want to go to this last piece here where Matt tells you what to look for next. There's also information about the jab and stuff too that I can't get into on here because it's YouTube. The CIA has yet to comment on the nature of its relationship to tech companies like Twitter. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by third parties, so what I saw could be limited. He goes on to say, watch for Barry Weiss, Schellenberger, MD, and I think that's Lee Fang, and this space for more on issues ranging from the pandemic and Twitter's relationship to Congress and more. More information will be coming out. Now, what was interesting to me, I showed you all of that. I didn't show you all of it because it's really long, but I showed you evidence, the documents there that were attached to the tweets that Matt Taibbi had. Now, I showed you that. And some people, one being a politician, still tried to come in and protect the alphabet letter groups. And that loser is Ted Lieu. Ted Lieu. So he came in and said, Elon Musk, Matt Taibbi, Schellenberger, MD are gaslighting you. Are gaslighting you with their misleading Twitter files. Here's the truth. One, FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force does threat indicator sharing with companies. That's a good thing. Two, companies decide what to do with that information. Companies decide what to do with that information. Didn't we just show you the evidence? Haven't we shown you every part of these Twitter files that come out that they were coming in and telling them what to do? Ted Lieu couldn't just leave it be. Couldn't just keep his mouth shut. Here comes Ted Lieu in to play Captain Save a FBI agency. Captain Save the FBI. Captain Save the CIA. Here comes Ted Lieu. Couldn't keep his mouth shut. Had the nerve to say they are gaslighting you. No, the only one gaslighting anybody is Ted Lieu. He let you know he thinks it's a good thing for the FBI, for the task force. The FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force does threat indicator sharing with companies. That's a good thing. Ted thinks this is a good thing. Ted Lieu is not on your team. And he's a member of the Progressive Caucus. This is what it means to be a progressive nowadays. Someone who backs alphabet letter agency groups and calls journalists gaslighters. What a clown. What a clown. I do not know how this guy continues to get. Who is voting for Ted Lieu? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. This guy's ridiculous. Look at this. Look at him. Husband of Betty, the love of my life, father of two great kids, USAF veteran, member of Congress in that order. Also, empathy is good. This sounds like something you would have heard someone say like back in like the 1930s. Husband of Betty. Do you define yourself that way? When you talk about yourself or introduce yourself to someone, do you say, hi, I'm Sabrina, wife of so-and-so. No, this is so weird. But that's Ted Lieu, member of the Progressive Caucus. I'll go to those comments on Rockfin, Eric. What a joke. What a freaking joke. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin JVB. Thank you so much. And thank you for the tip, Roger. Alabama is a low/no tax state. Taxes are supposed to pay for services meant to be public, like trash pickup. GOP ideology is no tax, low tax. That means dough kept in your pocket. What they never tell you is that so-called save money will now go towards paying private companies for things your taxes would have paid for, but now are for profit, which means higher prices. Public banks is the only way that will satisfy both sides. Thank you so much for that. I don't get it, guys. Thank you for the super chat, Anthony. Happy New Year, Sabby and friends. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much. Phew. I tell you, you see what's happening to these progressives? All right, we're going to go into our final story, and this is actually going to lead into the call-in segment tonight, and I want to hear your opinion about this. So, yes, it is true. This has come forward that Marianne Williamson is apparently, or has apparently, sought an exploratory committee. Let's get into it. Now, this is coming from Breitbart News here. Let's go ahead into that article. Make this a little bit bigger for the peeps in the back. All right. Report Marianne Williamson preparing 2024 primary challenge against Joe Biden. Here we go. Marianne Williamson, a former 2020 Democrat presidential candidate, is preparing to launch a primary challenge against President Joe Biden's expected 2024 re-election campaign. According to reports, I'll make this a little bit larger because it's a little bit, the font's a little bit smaller. Puck's News' Tara Palmieri reported that Williamson spoke out against corporate Democrats and the need to challenge Biden during a party in LA last month. Williamson has already put out feelers to donors, according to Palmieri's sources. Further, Williamson has secured an exploratory committee campaign tab on Act Blue, the top Democrat fundraising apparatus. So let me explain to people who are not familiar. Typically, when someone is about to, announce that they're going to run for an office, they will secure an exploratory committee. That's usually the first indicator that this person is most likely going to run if they're doing all of that. Palmieri reported she has visited New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Iowa before the decision to nix Iowa from the primary lineup. She's already trying to build an operation in South Carolina where staffers are reaching out to former Bernie Sanders alumni to see if they're game. Williamson declined to comment. Although Biden has not officially launched his re-election campaign, he has consistently signaled that he plans to seek re-election in 2024. The Biden family fully supports a 2024 re-election campaign, a senior White House advisor recently told Fox News. As the president has said, he intends to run for re-election. That is something both Dr. Biden and the family fully support. Biden is expected to make his decision in the coming weeks. That is according to White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain. I expect it shortly after the holidays, but I expect the decision will be to do it. Currently, the only declared candidate running in 2024 is former President Donald Trump. Williamson will be placed in an unusual position if she follows through and launches a primary campaign against the incumbent Democrat president. However, reports about her 2024 campaign come amid declining Democrat support for Biden. A recent USA Today Suffolk University poll found that the amount of Democrats who want Biden to run for a second term has fallen from 45% down to 40%. That poll has also found that less than a quarter of Americans, 23%, want to see him run for re-election in 2024. Biden's declining numbers in the poll, taken 1 month after midterm elections, comes after several Democrat politicians refused to say if they would support a Biden 2024 candidacy when questioned on the midterm campaign trail. Let's go on a little bit here. Moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin to progressive firebrands like AOC have all stayed silent on Biden's 2024 hopes. You know who hasn't? Ro Khanna hasn't. Ro Khanna said he fully supports Joe Biden's re-election. Let's go on. Skip over that part here. I'm going to get back to the Marianne part. In the 2020 cycle, Williamson did not make it to the Democratic primaries. Instead, she suspended her campaign in January 2020 amid Democrat National Committee changes to the debate threshold, making it harder for her to qualify for the debates. She went on to endorse Bernie Sanders. Okay. We're going to talk about this in 3 different parts. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the systemic problems that Marianne is going to face, the DNC. Second, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of a Marianne Williamson candidacy. And third, we're going to talk about the strategy. What is her strategy? First and foremost, let's start with the pros and the cons. Marianne is good on some issues. There are some issues that she did not support that she has come around on, one of them being Medicare for all. And when she was running in 2020, she did not support Medicare for all. That was not a part of her platform. She said, no, we can't do that. She came around on that issue. In fact, here's a video right before she spoke at the March for Medicare for All, asking people to come out and support the march. Listen to this.
Hey everybody, big news. July 24th, Saturday, Washington, D.C., a big Medicare for All rally, also to be held in 24 cities around the country. Enough is enough. Tens of millions of people, uninsured, underinsured, working at jobs they hate because it's the only way they can get their medical insurance paid for. People who can't afford their insulin. People who are going bankrupt because of medical costs. People who can't afford to even pay for the medicine that their children need for their asthma. This is absolutely unacceptable in a country like ours. It's unnecessary. This is not the way it is in any other advanced democracy. And it's time for we, the people, to make it clear what we want. The polls already show it. The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. But why is it that we don't have it? We know why we don't have it. And that is because short-term profit for health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies have a louder voice in Washington than we do. So, July 24th, Saturday, Washington, D.C. Let's us go to Washington. I will be speaking there that day, along with others. Let's make a lot of noise. So please look at your calendar, see if it's something that you can make happen. Tell people about it. Go to m4all.org, read up about it, start talking about it, spread the word. We have to make it big. We have to make the kind of noise that even the elected officials in Washington won't be able to avoid hearing. That's what.
Okay, so, and she was there. She was one of the keynote speakers at the March for Medicare for All in DC. She has supported it, you know, even since then. That is something I will say she did change her mind on. So when it comes to the healthcare issue, I feel she's good on that issue. I also feel she's good on the issue of reparations. Now, this is something that a lot of people didn't want to talk about in 2020. She was the one candidate on the debate stage that made reparations her number one thing. And that didn't just start with her presidential campaign. That was something that she's been championing for years before that. She started doing research about reparations back in the early 90s, which a lot of people didn't know about. I knew about that though. You know why? Because I interviewed her about that. Almost 2 years ago, I interviewed Marianne about that specific issue and just that issue. So you can find this interview on my channel, Reparations Interview with Marianne Williamson. That was earlier on during my show. Listen to what she says here about reparations.
So we were talking about the fact that when people talk about the civil rights movement, sometimes it's spoken about in the context, it's like, this was a long time ago, whereas that was actually only 61 years ago, which really wasn't that long ago, like when you think about it. What do you think about, when you think about like the Jim Crow laws, what do you feel those laws had an effect, or how did they affect white people and Black people even today?
Let me chime in here for just a second to tell you why I brought that up. The reason why I brought that question up is a lot of times when people talk about reparations, they think you're only talking about it in reference to slavery. It's not just in reference to slavery. It's also in reference to the Jim Crow laws. And she goes into detail about that as well. Again, I'll give her props for this. Marianne Williamson has met with ADOS. She has met with people like Dr. Darity. So she has met with people who have done the research. She's helped do research about this as well before she even decided to make that a part of her platform. Listen to this.
Well, okay, the Civil War is over in 1865, right? 1865, and then you have 12 years of Reconstruction. During that time, we saw what was possible, actually. There were Black senators, Black congressmen, et cetera. As soon as and during that time, of course, there were Union soldiers stationed in the South to ensure that slavery would not be reinstituted. As we know, the white racists, and remember, these people had slavery, and they not only had grown up in slavery, but I mean, once again, this is interesting because we now have the psychological and emotional astuteness to like think this through in a whole different way. So I'm raised with slavery. We lose the war. I have nothing. So where's racism going to go? It burrowed down even deeper. So the stroke of a presidential signature or constitutional amendment could end the external institution of slavery at the time, but it couldn't end racism. Racism burrowed down even deeper. Then you get Ku Klux Klan, et cetera. So once Reconstruction was over, the Black legislatures, as you well know, passed the Black Code laws to ensure subpar economic, political, and social opportunity for Black people, which means that you have 2.5 centuries of slavery followed by another 100 years of institutionalized violence towards Black people in America. Now, I'm 68 years old. I remember, I grew up in Houston. I remember this building that's still there that it's called the Medical Towers building. And I remember we go to the doctor, and in between the bathrooms, there's a sign, colored bathrooms downstairs. And I remember asking my mother, and I remember my parents explaining to me, and my parents were very liberal people. You know, they were very against it, but I remember my parents explaining it. So I remember that time. I was a little girl, but I remember because Dr. King was killed in 1968. I was 16 years old. Teenagers are hip to what's happening. They were hip to what's happening then. Now, in 1964, you have the Civil Rights Act that deconstructed, dismantled segregation. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act, which guaranteed universal voting accessibility, although they've now, since 2013, even been chipping away at that. If Dr. King had lived, there's a third piece of the stool that was simply never accomplished. The argument I would make to people in my campaign is, if you've been kicking people for 350 years, that's what we're talking about here. if you've been kicking someone, you owe it to more than help them get back. You owe it to them to do more than stop kicking. You owe it to them as well to help them get back up.
So she's really good on that issue. Like, that is one thing I will say I give her credit for. Deneen said she attended Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore's ADOS conference, and they taught her a lot. Yeah, that is something, like, I will say, I'll give her credit for that. We'll give her credit for that. Mastermind said, I like the new highlights. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's my actual hair color, you guys. That is my actual hair color. Not what you see today. It is weird looking back on that now. That's kind of funny. But great on reparations. She came around on Medicare for all, so she's good on the healthcare issue. You know, we'll get to that in just a second. I want to show you the top moments that she did have during the debates, because she did bring up reparations during the debates as well. So like I said, I think if she goes through with this, she is going to have to, some people are going to tell her this is a mistake, but I think she still needs to make reparations her number one issue. Some people, I'm going to tell you though, some people are going to tell her, no, don't do that, because then you isolating a certain group of people. But she's kind of known for that as her number one thing because of the things she said during the 2020 primary debates. Listen to this.
Flint is just the tip of the iceberg. We have an administration that has gutted the Clean Water Act. We have communities, particularly communities of color and disadvantaged communities all over this country, who are suffering from environmental injustice. If you think any of this wonkiness is going to deal with this dark psychic force of the collectivized hatred that this president is bringing up in this country, then I'm afraid that the Democrats are going to see some very dark days. We need to say it like it is. It's bigger than Flint. It's all over this country. It's particularly people of color. It's particularly people who do not have the money to fight back. And if the Democrats don't start saying it, then why would those people feel that they're there for us? And if those people don't feel it, they won't vote for us, and Donald Trump will win.
Many of your opponents support a commission to study the issue of reparations for slavery. But you are calling for up to $500 billion in financial assistance. What makes you qualified to determine how much is owed in reparations?
Well, Don Lemon has got to be the most Uncle Tom. Let me finish. I'm trying to be nice. I'm going to try to be nice. That was just a dumb ass. Obviously, you didn't do your research.
First of all, it's not $500 billion in financial assistance. It's $500 billion, $200 to $500 billion payment of a debt that is owed. That is what reparations is. I'll tell you what makes me qualified. If you did the math of the 40 acres and a mule, given that there was 4 to 5 million slaves at the end of the Civil War, there were 4 to 5, and they were all promised 40 acres and a mule for every family of 4. If you did the math today, it would be trillions of dollars. And I believe that anything less than $100 billion is an insult. And I believe that 200 to 500 billion is politically feasible today, because so many Americans realize there is an injustice that continues to form a toxicity underneath the surface, an emotional turbulence that only reparations.
Thank you very much. Senator.
See, they try to cut her off there when she's talking about the fact that she had to explain that to Don Lemon. That tells you where Don Lemon he's just there to protect the status quo. Now, those are some of the pros there. Okay. Now we need to get to the cons. Marianne Williamson on foreign policy has not been good. Has not been good. We talked about this on Bad Faith when me, Nick, and CJ went on to Bree's show. And I got to tell you, some of the things I've seen from her via Twitter have not been good. And here's where I stand when it comes with foreign policy. I'm anti-war. I'm anti-imperialist. And if you're not on board with that, I'm not trying to rock with you. When it comes to the situation between Israel and Palestine, if you are against BDS, I'm not trying to rock with you. And I've said this on this show multiple times. Now, why does that have to do with Marianne Williamson? because some people may not remember this, and this tweet was deleted, but I sure as hell do, because Marianne Williamson does not support BDS. And I have to show this. And like I said, yes, I've interviewed her before on this show, but I'm telling you the pros and the cons tonight. Now, this is a tweet from Marianne Williamson. This is March 24, 2019. I do not support BDS, and I too love peace. I too love freedom, and I too love human rights. Here's the problem. BDS, Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, is a Palestinian-led movement to give the Palestinian people back their human rights. You see what I'm saying? So when you say, and I too love human rights, I don't support BDS. No, those two things don't go together. They don't go together. Again, this tweet has been deleted. But see, people still have screenshots. And so when it comes to her takes on foreign policy, she got to decide where she stands on BDS now. Now it's 2022. So someone was asking me in the chat, I think it was Betsy, Sabby, will you have Marianne on again once she officially announced? I would have her on again, but this time we'd have to talk about these foreign policy stances, because it's not just this particular issue. It's the statement that she made about the war in Afghanistan. We got to protect the women and the children. That's the same talking point that you hear from mainstream media. It's never about the women and the children. It's about the resources. That's why they're going after those countries. They take resources from those countries. And to hear her make those same kind of talking points when it comes to foreign policy, that is very questionable. Now, let me tell you why it's questionable. Foreign policy, that is the one element where the president of the United States can act alone. They don't necessarily need to get permission from Congress and the Senate. You see why this is a problem? So if you have bad takes on foreign policy and you want to be president of the United States, that's a red flag for me. That is a big red flag. Can't do it. Can't do it. So I can't back anyone who does not support BDS, does not support the Palestinian-led movement. I can't do it, and I won't do it, whether I've interviewed them or not. So the foreign policy takes, very problematic. The second problem, the capitalism issue. Marianne, she'll talk about the problems with poverty. And yes, she's helped people. She has organizations where she's helped people. There was an organization she had called Project AIDS, where she was, I think it was Project Angel Food. She was helping people that were diagnosed with AIDS and HIV. This goes all the way back. Yes, she does help people. But what I noticed is when I hear her talk about these issues, she doesn't link it back to capitalism. And that's the problem. And I feel like for me, if you can't see where what the real problem is, that it's not just the fact that people are poor, excuse me. It's not just the fact that people are poor. It's also the fact that this is what happens when you live in a capitalist system, that under capitalism, the people at the bottom will always be exploited. Without exploitation, there is no capitalism. So for me, if you can't make that connection, that's a problem. And that tells me that you too might be a capitalist. Those two things for me, the foreign policy and the capitalism. Those are big problems for me. Now let's go to that other point, strategy. What is the strategy? Because if she is running through the Democratic Party to primary challenge Joe Biden, is the strategy for Marianne to try to win? Or is the strategy for Marianne to run against Joe Biden and shake things up? Because here's the thing. If she's running against Joe Biden just to shake things up, just like we said should happen with a third party or independent party candidate, then why not just run as an independent or third party candidate? if she is running against Joe Biden to try to actually win, how is she going to be able to fix, and this goes to the other issue, how is she going to be able to fix the systemic issues that she is going to hit up against the same way that Bernie Sanders did? How is Marianne going to respond to the DNC trying to change the rules of the debates just like they did last time? They can change the rules whenever they want. They changed the rules to let Michael Bloomberg debate. Remember? How is Marianne, what is she going to do when it gets to the point where we're talking about the delegates, where you get the super delegates from these states? How is Marianne going to handle, or what is she going to do about them choosing to, maybe if there's a state where there's a tie, the DNC or the super delegates deciding to just go ahead and give it to Joe Biden just because? And I ask this question because that happened with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. How is she going to beat that? How is Marianne going to beat a system in the Democratic Party that has failed Bernie Sanders 2 times in a row? And I ask this question because of this. The support that we had in this country for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020 was a lot. People have split away from that Bernie movement because of what happened 2 times in a row. And because Bernie Sanders told you vote for Hillary, vote for Joe Biden. So Marianne Williamson would have to get even more support than Bernie Sanders got. You guys see what I'm saying? Bernie Sanders had the most money, got the most money from the people, still lost. You know why? DNC came in, Obama came in. They changed the rules, smear campaigns on mainstream media. This is going to happen to her too. I'm just being real. How is she going to beat that if Bernie Sanders, someone who is already a politician, went up against this 2 times in a row and even he couldn't beat it? How is Marianne going to beat that? Then, if she doesn't beat that system and she loses to Joe Biden, is Marianne Williamson going to do the same thing that Bernie Sanders did and tell you to vote for Joe Biden because he's the lesser of 2 evils? Because if that's what is going to happen, then there is no point in her running against Joe Biden. I'm keeping it real. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you on this show. In the end, if she loses, and I believe she will, because not necessarily because of her, but because of the system. So when she loses, if the goal for her is to tell you to go ahead and vote for Joe Biden so you don't get Ron DeSantis or a Trump-like figure in there, there is no point in her running against Joe Biden at this point in time. We don't need that to happen again. You want to talk about killing? Yeah, the progressive movement is split, but you want to talk about ending the progressive movement? That's how you end it right there. So what is the strategy? There's that question. How do you beat the system that screwed Bernie Sanders over 2 times in a row? Unless you move further to the right. Unless you run a less progressive campaign. Unless you run a campaign where you don't go for Medicare for all. You go for access to health care. Unless you run a campaign where you don't necessarily promote reparations, but you talk about we should have a reparations committee. We should research it. So what is the strategy? And you heard the pros and the cons. How do you beat that system? But if she is to run just to shake things up, then she might as well run as an independent or a third-party candidate. And if they thought that Bernie was vilified, she's going to be even more vilified. You know why? Because last time, there was no Democrat incumbent. last time in 2020, when all those candidates were running for office, there was no sitting Democrat president. The sitting president was a Republican. So if people thought they came after Bernie, how do you think they're going to come after Marianne Williamson? And she's running against the sitting president who is a Democrat, and she's running the Democratic Party. Keeping it real for you. But what did you guys think? Let's go ahead and see that poll, Eric. How do you guys feel about this, and how would you vote? So the poll, we have 577 votes. Would you vote for Marianne Williamson if she ran in 2024? 6% of you said yes if she ran as a Democrat. 33% of you said yes only if independent or third party. Wow, these changed. 39% of you said no for Democrat, Indy, or third party. And 22% of you said you are not sure. Someone should take a picture of this. When I looked at this before, yes, only if Indy or third party was actually a lot higher. But it seems like most of you are saying no, regardless. We're going to talk about this tonight on Call In. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you. And Eric, we're going to skip that poll. Well, I'll just show them really quick. I have a poll I'm going to send you guys via Substack. I need you to rank the top news stories of 2022. This is going to be for, and obviously like 1 would be your top story in that order, that kind of thing. This is for the New Year's Eve special that I'm doing with KRTD Media, which is now Kerberos Media, and Hardlands Media. We're going to be streaming on all platforms, all of our platforms. And we did this last year too. It was me and KRTD Media, but now Hardlands is joining as well as Chicago Corner. So it's an all-day stream. It's going to be fun. It was fun last time too. But we end the segment on New Year's Eve with this segment, which is the top news stories. And that was a pretty fun time. So I'll send you guys the link via my Substack so you can do that poll. And then I'll get those results over to Shane at KRTD, supposed to be by tomorrow afternoon. So yeah. But let's talk about it, guys. Let's talk about it on Call In. All right, Eric, I'm going to take a quick break and then we can.
All right. Let's see. Let me check something here. All right. How's everybody doing here on this Tuesday night? Let's see if I can just. All right. Yeah, just checking my volume levels, making sure we're coming in pretty good here. So we're going to have Call In tonight where you can. Actually, let me change the banner. Where you can hit the link that we're going to be giving you, that you can go to the website, or you can put Call In. I'm going to install the Call In app on your cell phone and just look for Sabby Sabs on there, and you will see. Sabby seems to be these days one of the larger draws on Call In, which is cool, especially for the political stuff. She gets just about as much traffic as anybody, except for a few. Let's see. So I just put the link into the chat as well. So let's see what's going on. We had a few chats come through. Let's check on those. All right. Thanks for this. From DC, after all this, you still think voting is real? LOL. Thanks for that, DC. We got another one from DC. Williamson is an imperialist, glowy psyop distraction. Thanks for that. And Snork Y2K put in, Biden is thinking of running for president against that Joe Biden guy. I thought that was pretty funny with our president, who always liked to say, you can vote for the other Biden. Maybe you will. Israel Moore said, Sabby Sabs, who has piqued your interest that can actually win? Because I'm not interested in anyone. And that's an interesting question, and we can be talking about that more in the call-in segment. We can hear what you think, and we can hash it out some more. We'll be seeing you all in there. Betsy, I think in answer to Israel's question, there you go. Maybe these nuts will run again. There's a candidate for you. Let's see. what else we had in here from the Oracle at Delphi. Marianne Williamson understands the problems. The question is one of personal, professional, and political courage. And that is definitely a question, because you could have the best candidate in the world, and if they don't have the courage, then what's going to happen? Well, we've seen what happens. And thanks for this super sticker from Jason Gusti. Thanks for that. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. So let's see. Yeah, so calling tonight is about the Marianne Williamson run, but we can also, I'm sure, expand the conversation into what we do about this whole thing in terms of candidates and people running. It's, I mean, one thing that bugs me sometimes is this whole idea that you'll get things about the primary, and we need to primary Biden, and because the problem with primarying is that you're still talking about staying within the party and still party politics. So, personally, I think we need to be talking about third parties, and we need to be talking about a movement that's outside of parties, outside of these current parties and this current system. And if you're just talking about doing primaries, then you're not doing that. You're just working within what they're already doing. Regarding Marianne Williamson herself, let me hit this chat here. From Jason saying, Marianne is better off running as a Democrat. If she runs as a Dem, at least she can make it to a primary debate. No chance if she gets that chance in the general. Bipartisans change the rules. No, I get kind of the point that he's getting at here, is that there's this idea that if you just try running as an independent, then you don't get anywhere. And we've certainly seen examples of that where if people just throw out an independent candidacy, then it just doesn't get traction, doesn't cover it and whatnot. Trying to go into the Democrat, you have the other problem, is that it just they're just co-opted from the start. And I think we have lots and lots and lots of evidence now that running as a Democrat and trying to do it through that party is not going to work. It's just who they are. And I think we've run that experiment. What I would propose is that we don't just think about it in terms of just having a candidate, just having this independent candidate, and we're going to do all this, and Danny's asking what color is my T-shirt. It's red. I don't know if it doesn't look red on your screen. So we need so I think what we need is a movement. We don't need a candidate. We don't need a party. We need a movement. And so if you're talking about a movement, then what do you organize a movement around? And then those of you that seen me here before will know I'm going to talk about demands, and the idea that having a concise list of demands, then that's what you organize around, and you go from there. And then if what they talk about with the Shama Sawan and how she was selected, then it comes out of the movement.
Right. I think with the name recognition that Marianne Williamson has, she could do this independent or third party, or she could start some type of move, because that's the thing. I've said this before on this show. That's why I asked Chris Hedges the first time he came on. I asked him, would you do it? Would you run? He said he would probably not. He's not really interested in doing that. But you need to have someone that has that name recognition run as third party or independent. I mean, we saw that work with someone like Ross Perot. Now, some people don't remember this, but Ross Perot was able to get 18% of the vote? Listen, he really did shake things up in that race. He is actually the reason why, or I believe he's part of the reason why George Bush Sr. lost. And he was an incumbent. So that's just my take on this. And if Marianne came back on again, I would tell her the same thing. Just you have big enough name recognition to run third party or independent or to start like a third party movement. I don't think she should put herself through the Democratic Party again. Like, she already went through this and she knows the trickery that they do. How much time did they give her? We can talk about this in call-in, but notice how they didn't
call-in.
Yeah, notice how they didn't give her or Andrew Yang much time to talk during the debates. That's on purpose. So why go through that again?
She didn't comment.
DC, kind of lame that Sabrina skipped out on reading those super chats, a little sketch, to be honest. I do that every time we have call-in. I take a break and Eric picks up the rest of them. It's not sketch. That's something that happens every time. Sorry. It is what it is. All right. We're going to go over to call-in, and I want to hear from you guys. What do you think should happen? So this is episode 66. Marianne Williamson for president 2024. Sources have reported that former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson has secured an exploratory committee for 2024 and that she is expected to challenge Joe Biden. Would you vote for Marianne? Why or why not? And as usual, as we do on these call-in shows, feel free to talk about other, segments that we discussed tonight on the show as well. But I really do want to hear from you guys. That link is pinned at the top of the chat. So let's head on over there, son. All right. So you guys know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.